Hey everyone, welcome back. And wow, boy, I didn't see that coming. When I said to you guys the other day, looks like this one might be a little worse than the first one we had, which we had like, what, 2 or 3 inches at the most. I thought, all right, this one's going to be a little bit worse. Who knows? We were going to break records. As a matter of fact, some of you are seeing this right now, and I waited till Wednesday afternoon, and some of you have already still had to dig out your cars. And I have to tell you, now I only live in Ringwood, so I'm still in like northern Passaic County. I'm not, in the sticks of like Pennsylvania or upstate New York or anything. But I do have a decent sized backyard, so I have places to put my snow. I look at my parents' house down in Lyndhurst. I saw some video of their neighborhood, and oh my God, all the cars that are buried in, and nowhere to put the snow. A lot of yards are very small, front yards, backyards, or especially. I have relatives in Hudson County, whether it's Bayonne, Jersey City, Union City, and oh my goodness, there's just nowhere to put the snow. So I really do empathize with a lot of you who live in areas like that. Hopefully you've been able to dig out. I will say this, at least from the roads that I've seen, and I've been on 287 and I've been on Route 23, it looks like our public works did a really, really good job in getting these streets clear. Now, I'm old enough to remember the blizzard of 78, where we got comparable number of inches, and let's just say main roads were impassable for like 3 or 4 days. If you don't think so, ask your parents or grandparents. It was really bad. So when I see that these streets were passable the very next day, I'm really impressed. So hopefully you've been digging out. Let's go back to your responses to the stereotyping. There were some really good ones. Again, a lot of times we don't mean to stereotype. It's just, again, the biggest factor that goes into forming what we perceive is our own experiences. So a lot of times, people whether it's, people you look like, or, you just assume somebody knows something, and you don't mean to stereotype or naturally assume that they know something. When not only do I not know that language, or I'm not that nationality, I'm not that religion, and it just happens. And again, it's based on our experiences helping to form what we perceive or what we feel we know to be true. That forms either how we initiate communication or how we respond to someone. And I have to tell you, one of the things I think is interesting, as we're seeing this more, as we're moving in now into the third decade of this century, is, there are so many mixes now. And this is where a lot of this confusion, a lot of you guys, especially who are younger, a lot of you were saying when you talked about how you stereotype someone, I thought they were Hispanic, or I thought they were Chinese, or I thought they were this or that, is because we are now, getting so many mixtures of different nationalities here in America. We've always been called, the United States has always been called the melting pot. And now as we move into this third decade of this century, my goodness, this is like 140 years after the peak time period for Ellis Island. So after 140 years of all these races mixing together, those kind of mistakes are going to happen. They're going to happen that a lot of you, and again, that's why they're called perceptual errors. Okay, stereotyping is a perceptual error. It's not something you do on purpose, unless you want to do it. But in a lot of cases, especially the ones that I read, no, you didn't stereotype on purpose. It was just a perceptual error based on your experiences. So now let's go ahead and move on. We're going to move on to Chapter 5. Now, the reason why we're skipping Chapter 3, Intercultural, is because we now offer, we've offered for a while a course in Intercultural that a lot of you, if you have that diversity course that you have to take for your degree requirement, I always recommend, try to take the interpersonal. And the authors of this book, now I've been using this textbook mostly on and off, but mostly on, since 1997. And it was only a couple years ago, like 1 or 2 years ago, like this most recent edition, that they threw in an intercultural chapter. So we're just going to go ahead and bypass it. And hopefully, if you take that diversity course, which is Com-114, you'll get a full semester of intercultural. But I want to switch now to Chapter 5. And I've always been interested with Chapter 5 because Chapter 5 deals with a part of communication that when you ask people, they'll tell you, oh, I do this very well. but they really don't do it as well as they think they do. And that part of communication I'm talking about is listening. Now, one of the biggest reasons why is they confuse two words, think they're one and the same. They take the word listening and hearing and think they're the same thing when they're actually very different terms. See, hearing is simply a biological activity. Sound waves bouncing off your eardrums. That's it. That's what hearing is. Whereas listening is a process. And it's a process just like with chapter 1 when we talked about the communication process. It's a process that needs to be completed in order for listening to be both effective and satisfactory. Okay? Now, as they talk about in your book, there are 5 stages to listening. And here they are right here. Now, let's go by one. Now, the first one is hearing. You have to have that sound wave bounce off your eardrum. Then there's attending, okay? And attending is when you now start focusing your attention on a particular sound. You know, like, for example, if somebody's eavesdropping, and I'm going to exaggerate this a little bit, it might look something like this, you know. All right? Now, of course, that's an exaggerated version of attending. But let's say, for example, you're in a cafeteria, you're eating with someone, and there's a bunch of people, the cafeteria's full. And at the table, next table over, somebody's saying something that sounds interesting to you. What you'll do is you might be just eating, and the person might be in front of you. And see what I'm attending. I'm now listening to that conversation. And it also, you know, almost like in a TV show or in a movie, you kind of drown out the other conversations going on as you're attending to that particular conversation. So that's attending, and then there's understanding, where you now get some meaning. You assign some meaning as to what it is you've been listening to. Now, this can happen very quickly, these first 3 stages. Let's say your phone rings. Now, you look at the phone, you think you recognize the number, you're pretty sure, but you're not, you know, you've seen it before. So you go ahead and you answer the phone and you say, hello. I just got fired and my boss is an asshole. And you're like, whoa, slow down, hold down, tell me what happened. Now, in this case, it's your sister. So, hearing. There's another line, you know, it's your sister, you recognize your sister. Attending. You're attending now because your sister seems to be upset about something. Now, in this situation, like say, for example, if you're sitting in the cafeteria, or let's say, I don't know if how many of you have been to Bergen lately, but remember you have that outdoor seating area outside the Bergen cafeteria. So you might be sitting with some people there, and when you start to realize your sister's on the phone, she's upset, you might go ahead and step up from that outdoor table with your friends, and you might walk over by the golf course. Okay? Because now you want to make sure that you're able to attend to what your sister's saying without having distractions. And when you go ahead and say, all right, now tell me what happened, and now your sister explains that she was fired from her job, and she feels she was unfairly fired by her boss, now you have the understanding. And you want to make sure you're doing that understanding. Because when you respond, you want to make sure you respond in a way that does demonstrate. Because the last thing you want to do is, let's say you're sitting at that table with your friends outside, and you say to your sister, all right, tell me what happened. You're like looking at your friends like, it's my sister. Okay? And then your sister says, so what do you think I should do? And you respond in a way that totally demonstrates you weren't paying attention at all. Suddenly your sister's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I didn't say that. You never listen to me. Click. And now you've damaged the relationship. Yes, I know some of you wouldn't mind damaging the relationship with your sister. But let's say you didn't want to do that. All right? Yes, you want to respond in a way that makes sure that you demonstrate that you were listening and that you do understand what was said to you. And then there's probably the most important part, the last stage, and that's remembering. All right? You want to make sure you remember what's been said to you. Now, the same thing happens in a classroom. Okay? You want to make sure that you're listening, attending, and your response and remembering, of course, happens when you take a test. You want to make sure I was listening to the lectures, I understand it, I now respond in a way because I remembered what was said to me, and I aced my exam. All right? But in this case, like say with your sister, all right? So let's say you did the first 4 stages fine. That was at lunchtime. Okay? So after talking to your sister for about 20 minutes, you say, listen, I got to get back, I got to go to class, I'll talk to you later. So you hang up, talk to your friends, you finish your lunch, you go to class. You finish class, now you go to your work that you go to after school. So you work from like 3 to 8. Then you catch up with a couple of your friends, you go down to the diner, have some gravy fries. Now it's like 10:30, 11 o'clock. Now you get home, and as you're upstairs walking past your sister's bedroom door, it's open. And as you walk past, your sister catches you. Whoa, wait. And your sister says to you, so what do you think about what we talked about today? The last thing your sister needs to see or hear is, it's been a long day. What was it you talked about today? You know what? I can't believe you forgot. I hate you. Click. Or, closes the door. She slams the door in your face. And you have a damaged relationship. You don't want that to happen. Okay. Now, in your textbook, they list a lot of different reasons for why we have poor listening. Now, I'm not going to go into all of them, but I'll go into the one biggest one, something we've talked about before. Probably one of the biggest reasons for poor listening is noise. Or the lack of removing that noise is a big reason for poor listening. Okay? One of the things that people will do, which I think is mind-boggling in this day and age, in 2021, is trying to talk with someone and hopefully they're listening to you while they're playing a video game. Like it's Tuesday and you go up to your younger brother and you're like, listen, on Saturday you need to go pick up the cake. It's mom and dad's surprise anniversary party. And your brother's there playing Call of Duty 55 and he's got this guy from Slovenia and he's talking to him back and forth as they're playing. And your brother, of course, is like, yeah, I got it. Yeah, it's Saturday. Yeah, I got it. So now Saturday comes. You get everybody together. You send your parents off for 2 hours. They finally come back. Surprise! Look, look, your best friend's from California. You haven't seen it in 20 years. Oh, surprise. Okay, bro, go get the cake. And your bro says, what cake? And that's because you actually thought to talk with him while he was playing the video game. Yeah, actually removing all the noise. Okay? And I'll tell you one thing I used to do. Now, for a lot of years, and lately I've been lucky. I've had classrooms where none of the desks were near windows. But if I was in a classroom where desks were near windows, I would pull the shades down. I would get to class before it started, or even if I got there and there are students in there already, I would pull the shades down. Because one of the last things I need to have had is as a student sitting there, sitting next to the window, especially over in Ender Hall. I would have students up against the window and you got like woods and the golf course and everything else. The last thing I need is in the middle of my lecture that a student needs to be listening to is a squirrel scurrying along the tree line, picking up the nuts and gathering for the winter. Like that would be the most amazing thing. And they would be distracted from what it was I was saying up in the front of the room. So yes, you want to remove all physical or any type of noise. Just get rid of it before you have some kind of communication. Because that's probably one of the biggest reasons for poor listening, is we simply don't remove the noise. Now, in your textbook, they also talk about some of the ways that you can improve listening. And what's interesting about the ways to improve listening is some of these things are right in front of our face. We just don't practice it as much as we should. For example, one of the first ways to improve your listening is to ask questions. Remember, the dumbest question, go ahead, finish my line, is the one not asked. Okay? Absolutely. And so many times students will tell me that they're afraid to ask a question. Don't. If you don't understand what a professor, again, you're in the classroom and you get to this point, you're not understanding what's being said to you. You want to make sure you get full clarification when you get to understanding. All right? Ask questions. Now, I know this is somewhat a pain in the neck to some of my colleagues. Personally, I'll ask you 7, 8, 10 times during a class period. Any questions? Questions so far? Who's got questions? Anybody got any questions? If you don't ask questions, then you're telling me I'm understanding you, Eccles. All right? So if you don't understand, make sure you ask questions. Now, another thing you can do is you can paraphrase. Now, what paraphrasing is when you respond by, you repeat back what's been said to you, but in your own words. Okay? So, Professor, you're saying that it was September 1st, 1939 when the Germans rolled into Poland to start World War II? Absolutely. You respond back to what's been said to you, but in your own words. Or you repeat back what's been said to you in your own words. And there's nothing wrong with paraphrasing. Because all that person's going to say is that's absolutely right. Or they'll say, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, but at least they'll understand that you're needing clarification. You're at that stage 3 of understanding, but you're not quite getting it. So they'll go ahead when you paraphrase. Finally, take notes. Now, one of the things you do in the classroom is I'll see students show up at the beginning of the semester, and they'll have one of those big 200-page binders, and you got all the different subjects and everything else. And you'll take 2 or 3 pages of notes every class. I know some students will do that, okay? Or at least take a full page of notes for every class. And why do you take those notes? Absolutely. Remembering, okay? But it's not just in the classroom. See, everybody thinks, they'll bring all these notepads and all these notebooks, even if it's like a laptop or a tablet, and they'll take these notes and they'll be chammering away and think, well, once they leave the classroom, note-taking with listening is done. No, it's not. Note-taking can be done anywhere as long as listening is going on. For example, what's intrapersonal? Interpersonal is communicating with oneself. Well, look where I am right now. This is my kitchen leading into my dining room. Let's say I'm getting ready to go to ShopRite. All right? I'm looking around. I'm thinking to myself, all right, what do I need to get to ShopRite? I'm doing the week's grocery shopping. And then I go. But what didn't I do that if you were to go to ShopRite, any of the ShopRites in our area right now, like your area, my area, people are going to be walking around. What do they have in their hands? They got shopping lists. Why? Because instead of walking out without writing it down like I would do, you write it down. This way, as you're talking to yourself in the kitchen, trying to figure out, communicate to yourself, what do I need to get? What do I need to get? You write it down, you go to ShopRite, you remember, and you pick it up. Whereas I can't tell you how many times I've come back from ShopRite, and my wife looks in the bags and say, you got this, this, and this, but you didn't get that. Why didn't you get that? I told you to get that. They stopped carrying it. As a matter of fact, babe, I said, I want to see the manager because that's my wife's favorite product and you guys aren't carrying it anymore. And I forgot, babe. See, guys, make sure you say, I forgot, I'm sorry, babe, because if you don't like sleeping on the couch, that's what you got to do. Anyway, absolutely. Just writing down something like a shopping list, okay? Notes. I tell you what. If you look on any secretary's desk at Bergen, they still, even though we've got all this top technology going into 2021 with emails and with answering machines and all that other good stuff, voicemail, we still have secretaries who all have these paper pads while you were out. Because if you get a phone call, especially now I'm the department chair, I get a lot of phone calls, and if they don't go immediately to voicemail, the secretary will make sure to write it out, who called, what they called about, what time they called, so that I know the information, and she'll remember to tell me. Because if I come in 3 hours after she gets there, let's say I teach a class or two before I go into the office, if she doesn't write that stuff down and it didn't go through voicemail, she'll be like, oh, somebody called you at 8:30. It was, And of course, she's gotten 6, 7, maybe 10 phone calls since then, so she's not going to remember that one from 8:30. But what will she do? She writes it down, okay? One of my favorite moments, to give you an example of how well this works. About 15 years ago, we hired a new president of Bergen Community College. I think it was like 2006, 2007. And his name was Dr. Jerry Ryan. And one of the first things he did that September that he took over is he wanted to talk to some faculty. He wanted to talk to some older faculty and some newer faculty. Now, at the time, I'd only been a faculty member for about 4 years, so going into my 5th year, so I counted as one of the newer ones. So I was lucky enough to go meet with the president. Now, I was only in his office 10 minutes. And he just had a few questions, and one of the first questions he has is, what do you see, or what do you look forward to at Bergen? What excites you about Bergen and going forward? Well, that was easy for me because at the time, we were about to open the Lyndhurst campus. And for me, being from Lyndhurst, my parents still living there, I thought this was great. And I knew a lot of students come from Southern Bergen County. So I thought that the idea of having a satellite campus at Lyndhurst was great. Students wouldn't have to trek up Route 17 or up the Parkway anymore. I thought this would be awesome. And of course, as I'm answering his question, he's writing it down. I don't see the president now for a month and a half. It's late October. We're up in the Catskills. It was leadership weekend for the Office of Student Life, and I would often go and give presentations at that weekend and stuff. So it's Saturday morning. We're having breakfast, and there's a faculty staff table. And the president had come up. He was going to make a presentation that day. Sits down, says hello to me. First things out of his mouth, Mike, you got to hear what we're doing at the Lyndhurst campus. Well, how does he know that that's something I'm going to want to know about? Because when he listened to my answer, he wrote it down so he would remember. I saw the president twice more during that school year. Not often, but twice more. And I mean, I would see him at like big faculty conferences and stuff, but there was no interaction between us. But like whether it was getting on an elevator or seeing him in the hallway, that was always the first thing he told me about was the Lyndhurst campus, because he remembered, because he wrote it down. And he wasn't even a good president. But him writing that down shows that it helped him to remember. But is it worth doing in every case where there's listening? You have your assignment. I've written out a scenario for you. And I want you to look at it, take some time, and then give me a good detailed answer on what you would do if you were in that scenario. I think it's pretty interesting. I'm interested to read what you guys have to say, and then I'll talk a little bit more about it after your assignment is due. Now, your assignment is due by Sunday night at 8 p.m. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you have, because sometimes this answer can go one way or sometimes it goes another, depending on who the student is. So there's your assignment. You've got the assignment sheet. Have a terrific weekend. Keep digging out, people, and we'll see you on Monday morning. Oh, there's my mouse. All right, take care.